My family did not belong to a synagogue when I was growing up. Money was very short. My father sold coffee door to door. He bought the beans, he roasted them, ground them, and sold coffee door to door. Money was very tight. And my father said that religion was the biggest problem in the world. If it wasn't for religion, there wouldn't be wars. And maybe he had something there. Anyway, when I married, my husband came from a very observant family, and so it changed my life and my involvement in the Jewish community.
Where did you grow up?
Well, I was born in Brooklyn, New York, lived there until I was 10, and then we moved to upstate New York to a community called Ellenville. My father worked for the Board of Water Supply of New York City, and they were building a dam and reservoir in upstate New York to send water to New York City. And I lived there through my college years. And then I met my future husband and was married. And
when were you married?
1950.
Where did you meet?
I studied home economics in college, and I had a job in an institution near White Plains, New York. And I was teaching home economics to the children who were there. And my then future husband came as a resident in cardiology for 6 months. And he came in July, and we were married in November. We lived in very close quarters. We lived at this place, we ate there, we slept there. So you got to know someone very quickly. Irvington House, when our first son decided to make Aliyah and move to Israel, I said to Earl, now I really know what your parents felt like when we took their only grandchild to California. And but we loved it in California, thought we'd live there forever. And Earl was in private practice after his 2 years in the Air Force. And then he opened, as I said, he had a practice in a small town a little north of San Rafael called Novato. And people read about Novato and Petaluma. Now, of course, the area has changed a lot. When we lived in Novato, there was no synagogue. There was a Jewish community center in San Rafael, and we would have services there. And we would take the children to that synagogue/Jewish community center. And we left California in 1964 and came here to Chapel Hill when our oldest son was getting ready to have his bar mitzvah. My husband was offered a job in the School of Public Health. He'd been working in the School of Public Health at Berkeley, where he got his master in public health. And Ronald Reagan was elected governor of California, which wasn't too thrilling for us. And when this offer of a job came up, the dean of the School of Public Health at UNC came to California. And he said, someone told me I should talk to you. He said this to my husband. And Earl accepted the job. It was a very good one. And so we moved here, and our eldest son had his bar mitzvah in Durham at Bethel Synagogue, as did our other 3 children. And when we moved here, we needed to decide if we wanted to go to a Reform congregation or conservative, because in California we belong to a Reform congregation. And we went to services at both places for the high holidays. And we told the children it was their decision. Wherever they thought they would feel comfortable, that's where we would go. And when we went to services at Judea Reform, and the rabbi talked passionately about the Russian Jews who don't wear kippot and don't wear talisim. And we left the service, and our kids said, well, that's interesting. That rabbi didn't have a kippah, and he wasn't wearing a talis. Why is he so worried about the Russian Jews? We then went to Bethel, and at that time Rabbi Berger was the rabbi. He wore a kippah, he wore a talit, and so we joined Bethel. My sons are doing fine. They each belong to a kibbutz, and one was started, and it fell 3 times because of wars, and then it kind of got itself together, and a lot of young people who belonged to Habonim had made a commitment that they would go to Kibbutz Gezer. And although my son wasn't a member of Habonim, while he was at UNC, he was very active with a group of young people who actually rented a house and lived together, and they called it the Bayit. And they were active in Hillel. And so after he graduated and worked for 2 years, because he was told, when you come to Kibbutz Gezer, there's nothing here. You better bring yourself and bring furniture and bring money. So he did all that, plus a dog. And so the kibbutz had a lot of English speakers. And in time, a lot of those students, when they turned 40, looked around and said, is this what we want to do the rest of our lives? So many of them left. But I will tell you, if Kibbutz Gezer ever decides to close its doors, I know who will be the last one to leave, and that will be Lee Siegel. Right now, he does not work on the kibbutz. He works for a company that exports flowers to Europe. And his wife works in a town near the kibbutz, and she works for the health system in Israel and is in the X-ray department. She doesn't take X-rays, but she makes appointments for people. The other son lives on a kibbutz that borders the Gaza Strip. It's called Kfar Aza, and Aza and Gaza are the same. He worked on the kibbutz for a number of years, and they wanted him to be in charge of the fields, but he said, no, I'm a young guy. I'm not going to be in charge of people who are old enough to be my father and mother. And then he worked in their factory, which makes plastic chips that can be made into rainware, dishes, plastic bags, whatever. But people in the factory smoked, and he didn't like that. So a friend whom he had met when he was in the army said if you're ever looking for a job, the pharmaceutical places are looking for workers, and you, having English as well as Hebrew, would be a big draw for them. So he worked for the pharmaceutical company. Can't remember the name.
Pfizer?
It'll come to me. No. And he worked there for a couple of years. And someone from Eli Lilly called him and said, someone told us we should talk to you. So he said, okay, talk doesn't cost anything. How much are you making? What kind of benefits? Or whatever he answered, they said they could do better. It was Glaxo that he worked for in the first time. So he decided to leave Glaxo and went to work for Eli Lilly, where he still works. And they're very generous with their employees. And I think it's probably why we pay what we pay for our prescription drugs. But they are very generous to their employees. And
in Israel?
How
In
are
Israel.
there, I've been reading a lot about the fact that the whole kibbutz movement really is beginning falling apart.
Yes. A lot of the next generation aren't interested in staying on the kibbutz. I have 3 grandsons on Kibbutz Gezer, and when they turned 18, 2 at least, when they turned 18, became members of the kibbutz. Whether they will stay there, I don't know. And the children of my youngest son, who's on Kibbutz Kfar Aza, seem very much attached to the kibbutz, but they're still young. And the oldest grandchild there is 24, and he's working in Tel Aviv as a chef right now. He's a very good cook, and I don't know what his plans are. The oldest grandchild I have is 25, and he is now in college. In Israel, they say in school. He's in college. He was in the army for 5 years because he was asked to be an officer. And so he's just completed his first semester.
What school is he going?
He's going to a school in Jerusalem, and he's studying engineering. And I'm not sure what the name of the school is, but after the first semester, and my grandchildren are wonderful in that they keep in touch with me by email. And I heard from just the other day saying the second semester has started and it's really hard. So I wrote back and said, gets harder all the time, but you'll be great. And he's a wonderful young man. And the middle son middle grandson, has just gotten out of the army. And he's what one would call a wheeler dealer. He's coming to work in Vermont for a construction company over the summer. And the owner of the construction company said, the only way you can work here is if you enroll in school. So I asked my son about this, and he said, yeah, he's a great guy. He doesn't want kids with dead-end jobs. So my grandson said that his plan is to go to Durham Tech for 2 years and to transfer to UNC as a sophomore. We'll wait and see how that shakes down. But he's a big Tar Heel fan. A friend said maybe he'd go to State. I said, no, I don't think so. I have a son who lives in New York, who's a physician. He's married to a family therapist. They have 2 daughters. The older one graduated from Duke a year ago, works for ABC in New York. and the younger one is at Duke. She's a sophomore.
Does your son live in New York City per se or around?
Rochester is New York, is where my son.
No, not New York
right.
City, Rochester.
And he's head of the Department of Pediatrics at Rochester General. And the two girls said at an event that was in my honor, "Our grandmother is so good. She loves us, even though we go to Duke." And, so they recognize the rivalry. And then I have a daughter who lives in Chapel Hill, and she has a daughter who's 15 years old. And when that granddaughter was born in Delaware, we were there when that baby was 3 days old. And so I feel very attached to her in different ways than with my other grandchildren. But as I said, they're all wonderful, all 10 of them. And I'm blessed in many ways. I've had an interesting life here in Chapel Hill. My father thought I had lost my mind when I became president of Bethel Synagogue, but that's okay. After a while, he recognized that it was okay, and he was really very proud of me. So that was...
They just love you even though your mind was gone.
I think he may have thought that way, exactly. And
but why did he think it was so foolish of you to become president? Is it because you're a woman, or because, well, whatever? Why was
he thought it would be too much work. And being the first woman, maybe it's a little bit like what's going on in the presidential race here, that a woman is running for president. I guess he was concerned when my name was put forth that I wouldn't be voted in as president, and that would be difficult for me. But I didn't think it was okay. If I wasn't elected, I wasn't elected. It was okay.
He wasn't interested in bringing you children up in a synagogue or with a religion. How did he feel as you became more religious?
Yeah, I think he thought I'd gone off the deep end. But he recognized that my husband came from a very observant family, so he quickly got the picture. And he loved my husband. And when we had our first child, he, of course, was thrilled. And then we had the second, and then we had the third. And when I became pregnant with the fourth, he said, "Enough is enough." And we said, "Yes, that probably will be as many as we have." He always worried that I work too hard. That was his phrase. You work too hard. And tried to explain to him that I think one only works as hard as they not only can, but want to. And
there's a picture of you and Earl.
Right.
Over here's a picture of Earl by himself.
Mm-hmm.
Over here is a picture of you by yourself.
Right.